machines are coming. Just kidding, they're already here. That's why I'm launching my new video podcast, Life with Machines, where we ask the hard-hitting questions like, are we going to be their parents or their pets?
And is AI going to take over and they're going to just be running our cities in the next 10 years? What's going on?
I'm Baratunde Thurston. You may have watched me running around in nature on PBS, bought my book, How to Be Black, seen me on stage.
Welcome, Baratunde Thurston. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for being here.
In person.
But right now, I feel called to return to my roots. Not those roots, my technology roots. Ever since my mom brought home a computer in 1983, I've been obsessed. Working tech support to pay for college, running digital for The Onion and The Daily Show. Oh, and being very early to and very black on Twitter. Rest in peace, Twitter. But right now, this AI moment hits different. It's the first technology designed not just to serve us, but to be us. And this makes me wonder if our obsession with intelligence of an artificial nature has us wandering too far from our essential human nature. If the answer to every question can be generated in a flash, then it's time for us to question just what we want to ask. Right now, I think that question is, how can these machines help us become more human? On Life with Machines, I'm talking to all kinds of people. Those creating cutting-edge AI and those using it in innovative ways. The people hitting the gas pedal on this transition and those trying to pump the brakes. We might even invite on an AI or two to hear what they have to say. Together, we'll explore what could be possible in this strange new world and what we actually want for our life with machines. Watch and listen to Life with Machines, powered by Lenovo, produced in partnership with Voicing Change Media. With me, Baratunde Thurston, on YouTube, in your podcast app, or at our website, lifewithmachines.media.
Woo! Good morning, San Diego. Good morning, San Diego. There it is. Please clap for the Gay Men's Chorus. Clap for Major Garrett. Clap for Grant Oliphant. And lights and video and AV teams and so much. I did not bring out a vintage jersey. Major's got wardrobe changes. He's hosting the Oscars for y'all here tonight. It is so good to be with you. It is so good to be at this inaugural festival, celebrating collaboration, celebrating the restoration of hope, celebrating literal waves. It is very hard for me. I got here this morning. I wanted to strip down to my underwear and just jump in the ocean. And I talked to the organizers, and they said this, look, their goal is to get you all to mix and mingle, to put your guards down. All right, so if you feel called to strip down to your underwear and jump out and get into the literal waves, that's a sign of a successful festival. I'll be right behind you. I would like us to begin our brief time together, try to come to a bit more of one body, of one spirit, of one mind, and of one breath. So let us inhale together and exhale together. Can you do that with me? All right, here we go. Inhale. Let it out. Let's do it one more time. Inhale. Let it out. The air, physically and metaphorically, in our lives is toxic. But we have the power to transform it. We can inhale selfishness and exhale generosity. We can inhale fear and exhale hope. We can inhale tension and exhale release. So thank you for doing that with me. I'm going to share some stories with you from across my travels. We will get to the future machines and whether we're parents or pets or partners, but Everything to me, and I think to most of us, is a story. So what's the story we're telling ourselves about ourselves that helps determine who and how we are in this world to each other? My name is Baratunde Thurston. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I am the son of Arnold and Arnita, who were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. My mother was the daughter of Lorraine and Homer, who were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. Right on. My father was the son of Dora and Leon, who were both born and raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Now we have our first lesson on the false promise of autocomplete as a proxy for intelligence. You're welcome. And we're waking up, right? We're good. We're flowing into it. Now, my mother was born in 1940 into a story. Bless you. And bless her. Thanks for helping me write that moment. She was born into a story that was too small for the expansive size of the spirit that she was also born into. A black person, a woman in Washington, D.C., a city without a state, taxation without representation, a body without full rights, a woman subservient to male dominance, abused by her own father, dismissed by her own mother, and yet part of a different story as well. My mother's mother was the first black person to ever work inside the U.S. Supreme Court building. Clap for Grandma. Yeah. We're never just the one thing. And I think my mother spent her life trying to find that larger story that fit her better. For her, it began with her grandparents and time in the outdoors, on the land, down south, on horseback and in the fields and the meadows and the woods. She found a type of love mirrored there that wasn't available in her own household. Then it took on a political story. It's the 60s and 70s, and she's finding herself surrounded by, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, Pan-Africanist from across the diaspora, finding a decolonial voice, the type of voice you might find reflected here at the Museum of Us in your beautiful town. My mother never graduated from college. I went to night school with her at the community college while I was doing my homework. She was doing her homework. And she became a computer programmer for the federal government in the early 1980s. She was basically a hidden figure. My mom had a lot of hopes for me and my older sister, Belinda. Sometimes they came in the form of unsolicited advice. That's your right if you're a parent, you know this. Sometimes they came in the form of overwhelming exposure to all sorts of non-standard things. She would take me camping and hiking and biking and fishing. She would take me to cultural and political rallies. She would bring home what I like to think of as excess inventory from her government job in the form of a computer, and we were the first house on the block to have one. And I put it as excess inventory because I don't know the statute of limitations. And there's definitely law enforcement here. I met them. Big up to officers and the detectives and the sergeants who I met earlier, keeping us all safe. Thank you. Seriously, it was excess inventory. Upcycling. When my mother was helping bake me to release into this world, she sent me to a private school. I've been steeped in this Afrocentric, super political, let's go to rallies, let's shop at the health food co-op kind of life. Pretty much everything was black, and then she sent me to the school called Sidwell Friends, where pretty much everything was white. Y'all don't know nothing about that in this room, but trust me, it's a hypothetical universe where most of the people around you are white. My mom gave me this bumper sticker. It said, "Question authority." She said, "Put this up in your locker." And I did so without question. When I was no older than 12, my mom gave me a homework assignment, which really overwhelmed me. She said, "I want you, and maybe with the help of your older sister, to come up with the system we will live under after democracy and capitalism have failed." When I was no older than 12. That's a heavy assignment. I have not completed it. We are running out of time. She saw something coming. And that was not a literal assignment I could take seriously at that age, but it was a seed planted and nurtured by a community, by her, by my sister, by extended members of my family later, by the larger extended communities that we all tend to be a part of. And for me, it started to take shape in the form of finding and telling better stories. First full-time job I ever had, I was still a high school student, not full-time, but I had a paycheck and a union card, so it felt full-time. I worked at the Washington Post in the copy aid station. So I'm running around memos and faxes for the young people. Faxes are like emails that are harder to read. Emails are like text messages that are harder to read. Text messages are these short videos that you print the transcripts out, send them over your phone. My life would take this journey through a lot of different narrative universes in search of a story that I thought more accurately reflected who we can be and who we are when we're at our best. Because I have been so tired of seeing the worst of us reflected back to us, telling us this is as good as it gets. Anybody in here tired of that story? Yes, we're exhausted of it. It is true, and it is not the whole truth. So when you really want to change the world, you do not run for office. You do not go work for CBS, respect to Major Garrett. You start a podcast that like almost no one's heard of. You do that, and you might change the world. 2020, my wife and I started this podcast called How to Citizen. We take citizen to be a verb, an invitation to action, not merely a noun that separates people from each other and children from their families and neighbors and allies from potential strength. No, it's a verb, inviting you to do stuff. And the principles supporting that exploration and that definition, there are 4. To citizen is to show up, participate, assume there's something for you to do, and it's not always somebody else's job. To citizen is to understand power. One of our early guests, Eric Liu from Citizen University, really hipped us to this game. We had him on early for a reason, because power is this big word that we misinterpret. Oh, there's powerful people and powerless people. False. Power's dirty. False. Power is merely the ability to get somebody to do what you would have them do. Babies, very powerful. They got y'all going to jobs to make money, which ain't even real. Power is attention. What you give it to, you give your power to. Right now, you're giving me a lot of power. What am I going to do with it? Power is obviously money. It's gathering. It's sharing ideas. It can be physical force, but most importantly, it ebbs and it flows. It never disappears, and it is not a zero-sum game. Bless you, and thank you for accentuating my point. Y'all are providing the punctuation. We are truly co-authoring this talk together, y'all. I love it. I love it. Not too much, though. I'm not heavy on. No M dashes, please. I really don't never really learn how to use those. The third principle to citizen is to commit to the collective, not just the individual self. And we can have a hard time with that in the US and in the West because self, individual rights, that's our whole jam. Collective is a scary word. Sounds like communism or other people taking my stuff without working hard. Our very first guest, beautiful woman, Valerie Kaur, wrote a book called See No Stranger. The premise that a stranger is just a part of me I do not yet know. So if we see the other as just a piece of ourselves, then we can help somebody else and still be selfish. Hat trick! If we expand the sense of self. And the truth is we can't do much of value alone. I know it's the premise of our economy that we take all collective resource and try to siphon it off so every individual is responsible for carrying the weight of a nation on their back. Common defense becomes personal defense. Public education becomes private education. I say that as a private school graduate. We're all implicated in the complexity and paradoxes of this twisted story. But we have beautiful opportunities to unwind it. So committing to the collective, still be selfish. And lastly, the citizen is to invest in relationships with yourself, with others, with the planet around you, because there is no separation between these things. That's a myth we've been sold, and it serves someone, but not most of us. So once you start to unlock that, you start seeing this story all over the place. We featured people who who are world famous, like Jose Andres and the World Central Kitchen. Not because of the fame, but because the model was so opposite the story we're told. When disaster strikes, people need a hero to come in with their capes and maybe their guns and pallets of food dropped from the sky. And that's not how that organization works. It literally works from the bottom. They tap into the food trucks, the restaurant industry, the aunties and the grandmas, and anybody who's got a pot to cook in, and they play a coordinating role to let the people feed themselves, because we're much more powerful than we think. But sometimes we need to be reminded. World Central Kitchen reminds people of their own capacity to feed themselves. There's an ancient technology of self-governance that we forget when we're schooled on what democracy is. There is democracy that doesn't even involve politicians. That sound like a good idea these days? Any politicians in the room? I mean no offense. Thank you for your service. The idea of a citizen assembly where people come together, you're drafted into service. The Greeks actually believed in that more than elections. They didn't trust elections because they required extroverted personalities with charisma, comfort on stage and bright lights, fluency with words, amazingly perfect beards. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't trust that. And neither should you, not as the final say. Trust yourself. And so a citizens' assembly says kind of treat it like jury duty. It's truly representative when it's actually random and not biased towards verbosity. And you expertly facilitate that, and people come to something that is so much closer to consensus, and the process is transparent, so the public buys into it. It's actually a great escape hatch for politicians who are tired of spending all this time raising money and bearing the burden of all these choices. No one person can know everything, but everyone does know pretty much everything, and certainly what we all need. One of my most fun days doing the How to Citizen work took place here in San Diego County, not too far from here, La Jolla Country Day School. Anybody know that school? Make some noise. Yeah, I said make noise. Some of you held up a finger. We're going to work on communications, opportunity to grow, right? No shaming, just reminding you. They did this beautiful day, Citizen Day, and they invited me to speak at the 50-yard line on the football field. And high school kids, literally, objectively, the worst people on earth, right? They're just So judgmental. You can't do anything right. You're never cool. Why are you wearing that? Why do you look like that? Why do you smell like that? What is that phone? What is wrong with you? So maybe I have some issues with high school that have nothing to do with the kids and everything to do with me. But it was a beautiful day of inviting in the community, much like today, of reminding and modeling for these young people the world that they're about to be a part of them talking to each other and sharing. What does it mean to be patriotic? What does it mean to be a good community member and a good neighbor? To start asking that question at literally the youngest of age. The kindergarten students were engaged in this all the way up to the seniors. So I thought we had sorted out the democracy thing. We made 4 seasons of a podcast, but America kept America-ing. And I answered the call to help make this public television show, to go outside, to leave Zoom and the studio and the talkie-talkie and get sweaty, to make America outdoors. And this show took me all over. I got to see America. I also got to see America, which is a different country. Just as beautiful, just as beautiful. A lot of overlapping values, some distinct ones, but mostly people just trying to live, just trying to find each other again, to find purpose and belonging again. And we belong to so much more than just each other. We belong to a bigger circle of life, to this earth. And so this show was a great blessing for me to reconnect with the ground, to actually touch literal common ground. We have all these divisions and all this politics, but to put your feet on grass, to be literally in the same boat with someone who is so very different is the lesson that we need. And sometimes we don't need to talk. Talking's not the answer to everything. Sometimes we need to hike. We need to climb. We need to dig and get our hands in this earth. We maybe need to fall off a boat and not put that in the show because it's embarrassing. But we need to embody these things. And so I got to travel around. And again, I saw versions of the country that we don't hear about. West Virginia has got a story. They're hooked on coal and they want to keep Joe Manchin in his Maserati, right? It's fentanyl and this, that, and the other. And what I found there was regenerative farming, adaptive watercrafts, a man who was paralyzed from the neck down, innovating and taking on class 4, class 5 rapids, teaching me how to whitewater raft when he can't even walk. I think of my time with the Salmon people, the Shoshone-Bannock people of what we call Idaho. We had gone there to spend a day doing a traditional salmon hunt. And the salmon for them are siblings. They are their brother. They refer to them as brothers. Salmon, kinship is a real thing. When we showed up, there was a sense of mourning and loss, solemnity in the air because there weren't enough salmon to hunt. And the ones that were there were too weak to remove from their home. And so the people were like, we can't film, there's nothing to see here. And we worked with them to find a different way to tell this story. And they decided to, with their 6-year-old daughters, this family that we spent our day with, do a pretend salmon hunt. Let's take the staff, which comes from Father Tree, let's stand out in the water, and if there were a salmon, this is what you would do. It makes me sad thinking about it even now, and it makes me happy. There's a resilience, a persistence, a commitment from a people who've had to demonstrate that since time immemorial that we got to experience not in a book, but in the water. What makes the story more powerful is that I found a very similar story in a very different place, Tangier Island, in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. One of the most conservative, Trumpety Trump towns in the country. I spend the day on the water in the boat with the mayor, a man who goes by the name Ooker. You don't have to say it like that, but I just can't help it. It's Ooker. And Uker and I are walking along the shoreline, and we come across headstones. Who put a cemetery on the coastline? That's not good urban planning. No one did. But we have so done damage to this planet that the shoreline has come in. Tangier Island is sinking, being erased by us through our impact on the rising waters and the polar ice caps. And Uker told me a story of having to exhume his own ancestor from that graveyard, put him in his backyard to keep him safe, to honor his legacy. This is like a 7th generation waterman, almost breaking down in tears. Hardest man I've probably met out here. And it was the same story as the Shoshone Bannock. The desire to persist, to take care of loved ones, the seeing of self beyond the physical individual self. I felt kinship with trees myself. I'd always thought of the lynching stories of America's past as a crime against humanity. Spending time in a forest with an arborist and feeling the trees, I felt something else, a sense of grief for what those trees had been put through as well. They never signed up to be co-conspirators in acts of mass murder. No one asked them. They were forced to kill. The land remembers. The trees remember. The water remembers. Did I just quote Frozen 2? Maybe. The point is, Frozen 2 is quoting older wisdom. So why am I monkeying around with artificial intelligence? We are invoking a new population into our society. They will be our companions, our coworkers. We will report to them. Some already do. If you drive for Uber, you work for an algorithm already. If you think you're posting a free will on social media, you work for an algorithm already. But it's getting more literal. It's getting more literal. And we have to be in right relationship with each other and with this earth, or we will repeat some of the same problematic and challenging stories at a super scale with these entities. So we're making this show to try to find a thread and see, could we draw out something different from extraction and dominance? Could we draw out something different from transaction and isolation that has been so amplified by the current mass versions of the technologies we know? The answer, is yes, we're already doing it. I look out this window, and there are whales out there sometimes. We can listen to and understand whales, y'all. The Earth Species Project is literally doing that, using machine learning and artificial intelligence to listen to whales. Now, some people may already know how to talk to whales, but most of us don't. We need a little help. So that is happening. There's an organization called Cortico, taking that citizen assembly concept I told you about before. Let's use the AI to bring people together. We don't have to just slice and dice ourselves into little marketing subsegments to be auctioned off to some ad tech company. As a descendant of enslaved people, I don't like the language of auctions and people. So let's not build a whole new economy on very old failings of humanity. So we can apply these tools to help us understand each other across language barriers, or just the fact that there's too many of us for all of us to listen to each of us at all times. So let's enlist these machines in partnership to help us understand ourselves and understand this earth. All this is happening, all this is possible, but the biggest story that I have been so humbled to encounter is not on camera, it's not on microphone. It's the story of this very nation. We got a birthday party coming up, y'all. July 4th, 2026, we will be 250 years old. Who's excited? Yeah. Who's nervous? I'll lay my political cards on the table. probably obvious. I wasn't hoping for this particular outcome in terms of who would oversee the birthday party. I'm just like, I feel like it's gonna have a different tone than if the other candidate had prevailed. And yet here we are. The story that I'm feeling is many thousands of years old and would take many hours to properly do it justice. I just want to be honest with you. I will not do it justice, but I will try. When the Europeans arrived in this country, when Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue, took a wrong turn, and ended up in India, what he found here wasn't just corn and lessons in how to build a proper shelter. Certainly wasn't savages. What he found was democracy, already in practice. Practiced by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, popularly known as the Iroquois, the Five Nations, who became the Six. Seneca, Oneida, Tuscarora, Cayuga, Onondaga, Mohawk. Hundreds of years of relationship from the first contact until the Declaration, built on at least 1,000 years of practice, of division, of powers that was already here, of self-government in a collective sense that was already here. Benjamin Franklin was so enamored of them, he wrote about it repeatedly. He was a publisher. He was trying to popularize these ideas. There was a deep partnership, a deep offering. And we didn't take everything. We took the arrows and the eagle. That's Haudenosaunee. Right? We took some of the principles, the Articles of Confederations, based on the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in many ways. Not exclusively, but in a contributing fashion. We left a few things on the side. Equal role for women in political power. We didn't have much use for that. I think we do now. I think we've known this for a long time. The role of nature in decision-making of a political sense because it's a part of the community. 7-generation or long-term thinking. We don't decide just for ourselves, we decide for the future. Everything that feels like a crisis right now, the climate crisis, the democracy crisis, the tech AI economic crisis, they're all opportunities, they're all indications. We're crying out for something, we're missing something to bring us together. Why are we even together? Not being British is not enough. It's a pretty good reason, but it's not enough. Like Kendrick said, it's not enough. So much of what we're looking for has been here the whole time. That offer's still there. We've got to be in right relationship with it. We've got to find a different story where everything is just a story. I know we have arguments about facts. There's very few facts. Science and evidence, yes, they're real, but how we tell the story of the science and evidence is the more real thing to us. Our experience of reality is mediated by story. There is no United States of America except that we believe in it. There's no US dollar, as we're finding out, except that we believe in it. There's no San Diego, except that we believe in it. And what we choose to believe, the story we choose to believe, sets our course. So, we're in a battle of stories right now. Everything is falling apart. Democracy is dying. Yes, and we are really at the precipice of building something new, something better. That democracy didn't serve everybody right the whole time. A whole nation of laws never upheld a single of the 400 plus treaties it made with the nations who were already here. So how much were we respecting the rule of law this whole time? I don't have to tell you about slavery. Well, maybe I do, because it's been outlawed to talk about it in some places. So when the stories get banned, we still find ways to tell them. See, sinners. Okay. There is a story that is very small and it's built on grievance. It's built on insecurity, fear, shame, lack. And the only way the purveyors of this story feel like they can win is to force others to lose. It's a compelling story. It's in a lot of movies. But it is a tiny story that is beneath us. There is another story. Instead of grievance, there is gratitude. Instead of domination and ownership, there is belonging. Instead of merely profit, there is purpose that is shared. That is what is available to us right now. And as things are on fire, we should be putting those fires out. We also need to be designing the structures less prone to fire in the first place. And I'm here to report some good news to you. It's happening all over the place. It's happening in civics. It's happening in relationship with nature. It's even happening in relationship with these machines that we could tell a story that they're coming for us, or we could use these machines to draw forth the best parts of us, to gather like this, to draw forth the best parts of us. If we don't believe in ourselves, no one else will. And part of the story battle we're in is to sap us of our faith. Not just in a higher power, but in our own. So please, with me, let's rediscover, in a good way, that faith. Not to own it, but to belong to it. My name is Baratunde Thurston. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I currently live in Palm Springs, California, your very dry neighbor to the east. And I will be back to jump in these waters with you. Thank you. Whew.